So the Barbados test is over and it's Australia which has won this test. And if you look at the record books and the scorecard, you'd get a feeling that it is one more familiar sight of West Indian capitulation against a big team like Australia. It's one more case where West Indies has been trounced by a big team, this time by 159 runs. The game not lasting the 5 days, this time getting over in just 3 days time. The scorecard would reflect very poor batting by West Indies, some fantastic batting by West Australia in the second innings and fabulous bowling by them, and it will also show perhaps the glaring gap between the skill set and the talent and the confidence level of the two teams. Yes, all these things would look true if you just look at the scorecard and the statistics. But those of us who have followed the game from the ball one and have watched the game right through its duration would know the test match was not a typical test match of West Indian capitulation. It was a test match which was on knife's edge after the first 2 days, which was evenly contested and tightly matched. In fact, at one point in the second day, where West Indies, after acquiring a first innings lead of 10 runs, had reduced Australia to 65 for 4, and Australia, just with 55 runs lead and only 6 wickets in the kitty, were looking actually in a lot of trouble, and West Indies looked marginally ahead of Australia in terms of being the favourite to win this test. But then everything changed on the third day. The tables turned, and the game, in spite of all the drama of the first 2 days, ended up as a one-sided contest with Australia trouncing West Indies. Now, why and how this transformation happened in the third day? To understand this, we have to go back to the first day itself, because all the problems, the errors, the mistakes and the weaknesses that West Indies showed in the third day that resulted in that one-sided loss were actually there from the first day itself. The fact is that it was getting covered because of one positive thing about the West Indies team in this test match, and that was their bowling. West Indies in fact was playing like a tripod with just one leg which is made up of titanium, which is robust and perfect, and that one leg was their bowling. But unfortunately the rest of the two legs, that is their fielding and their batting, were actually looking to be like made up of paper only, and they were only waiting for a little of breeze of air or a nudge to fall down and take the tripod down. And with the same thing happened with West Indies in the first 2 days. In spite of being with those paper kind of legs like atrocious fielding and batting, they were still in the contest because the menacing nature of their bowling and their intensity in their bowling, their fantastic seam movement and the consistency with which all the 4 bowlers bowled, namely Shamar Joseph, Aljari Joseph, Griffiths and Seals, ensured that they could hide the shortcomings in terms of their fielding and batting. But then on the third day, the gap was too much and the problems from the two legs, that is fielding and batting, was so glaring that this time the bowling was not able to make it up for them or try to balance it out, and finally those tripod fell down and the West Indies team collapsed. Now when West Indies came to bowl in the third day, Australia were still 92 for 4, they had only 82 runs lead. But in the first 2 days, West Indies had already dropped 7 catches, and one hoped and expected that if they would not drop any catch with the kind of bowling and the discipline they were showing, they could really put pressure and then dismiss Australia for around 150, 160. That would give them a target of around 150 to chase down, which they should be able to do even on a challenging pitch like Barbados. But then their first test came at 107, when at 107 for 4, Travis Head at 20 offered a sitter of a catch, and West Indies refused to accept that catch, and they dropped that catch. That was their 8th drop, and that was their most costly and expensive drop, because Travis Head doesn't need a second invitation to punish you. So at that time, if Travis Head would have been dismissed, West Indies could have reduced Australia to 107 for 5. That means they were only 97 runs in ahead and only 5 wickets in hand, and Alex Carey could not have played any attacking cricket, and they would have tried to hang in there, and that would have put more pressure, and the fresh bowlers with a little harder ball could have really used the movement of the pitch and the uneven bounce to really polish off the lower middle order and the tail of Australia to around 150, and the game could have been very different. But then when you drop Head is not going to spare you. He became a different batter after that. He started punishing West Indies bowlers. He went on a front foot, he started attacking, and then completely disturbed the rhythm and the line and length of the West Indian bowlers, who were flawless till then. And that rattled them, that put the West Indian bowlers in the back foot, and ultimately when Head got dismissed at 167 with his individual score at 61, he had done enough damage to put Australia in a confident position, in a pole position, because by that time the lead had become 157, and when Alex Carey came into bat, he could bat with a free attitude because he knew they had already 157 run lead on a tricky pitch and they had still 5 wickets in hand, and Webster by then had stabilized himself and has played a really fantastic knock to show his application and his confidence to the others to go for attacking shot. So with Webster on the other end, all Alex Carey needed to do was to take over the role of Travis Head with even more intensity and attack further. And he knew that even if whether he would succeed or fail, there would be Webster at the other end to give stability. So that kind of approach was a master stroke. And then Alex Carey started punishing, and Alex Carey played a magnificent knock of 65 of 120 balls with a lot of force and success, which actually sealed the game decisively in favor of Australia. The reason for that is that because he was not under any pressure, Webster was playing brilliantly, and so that gave Carey the license to hit out, and then Carey put the attack on the West Indian bowlers, and they were now in the back foot. This kind of knock should be considered as one of the best second innings knock by any batter in modern day cricket. Yes, it was not like the 150 that Lara played against Australia to single-handedly win that iconic test in 1999, nor it was like Ben Duckett's 149 4 days back at Headingley, which won them the test against India. It was just 65, but on a tricky and a dicey and a juicy pitch. That 65 was as good as 150 by any big superstar in any other test match. So hats up to Carey for that brilliant knock, and you have to also salute Webster for that fantastic knock of 63, where he played the perfect mix of aggression and defense, positive cricket without being reckless, and gave a lot of stability at the same time, keeping the run rate and the scoreboard ticking, and ensured that the runs were coming from all corners of the field. And then his 63. So 61 from Travis Head, 63 from Webster, and 65 from Alex Carey virtually sealed the game in favor of Australia. And when finally Australia were dismissed for 310, the lead had become 300, the target was 301, and it was going to be a really uphill task on a difficult pitch at Barbados in the 4th innings for West Indies to chase down. And when you have Stark in your bowling, you are definitely going to get a breakthrough early, and that's what Australia did to put further pressure on West Indies. Stark grabbed the wicket of Braithwaite at 4, so at 4 for 1 the pressure was on West Indies, and then at 18 for 1 they had a chance to reduce West Indies to 18 for 2, but then Casey Carty's wicket was given as a gift because his catch was dropped by Cameron Green. It was a sitter. It looked maybe that the drop catch infection has caught up with Australia from West Indies, because Australia has also dropped 3 catches in this test. But fortunately for Australia, that drop catch didn't prove to be costly, though at that moment it looked, because from 18 for 1 they could have been 18 for 2, but instead Carty and Campbell carried the team total to 47 for 1, and that time looked maybe West Indies could give a little fight. But then Cummins played a master stroke at that moment. He brought Hazelwood to bowl, and who better than Hazelwood to bowl from the Joel Garner end, because the batter batting against the bowler from the Joel Garner end was finding the pitch, playing all kinds of tricks. The bounce was uneven, most of the balls were keeping low, there was seam movement, and some balls were kicking up and hitting the top end of the bat or the shoulders and all. So the batter should have really their task cut out batting from that end, especially if you have a bowler like Hazelwood who doesn't miss the line and length single bit. He doesn't depend on bowling wide outside the off stump or leg stump. He keeps the ball on the stump, and if he smells blood, then he will make your line miserable with his line and length and direction. And that's what he did. He took back-to-back wickets to reduce West Indies to 47 for 3 from 47 for 1 by dismissing Campbell and then debutant Brandon King in back-to-back balls. Then in the very next over, he dismissed the captain, the best batter for a test match arena, that is Ruston Chase, to reduce Australia to 4th, to reduce West Indies to 4 down. And then the pressure was really on West Indies, and the very next over again, that means he took his 4th wicket in 3 overs, that is in the very next over he dismissed Casey Carty to ensure that Australia was not going to pay a big price for the drop catch by Casey Carty by Cameron Green. So 4 wickets in 3 overs broke the back of West Indies attack batting, and they were never in the chase. And then subsequently, when Cummins came to dismiss Shai Hope, virtually the entire batting lineup was dismissed, and West Indies was never in that contest ever. And later, Labuschagne decided to contribute as a substitute, even though he was not in the team, by executing a brilliant direct hit run out to dismiss Algeri Joseph. And ultimately, when Hazelwood came back to dismiss Varakan to complete his 5-4, which was his 13th 5-4, a brilliant 5-4, the game was all but over with West Indies 86 for 8. Now look at Hazelwood. What a brilliant performer he is for Australia. He sometimes flies below the radar because of the high profile Cummins and Stark and their exploit. But the kind of performance Hazelwood has been giving over the period of time, over the years, is phenomenal. And let's not forget the fact that against West Indies, he is the bowler with the second best bowling average against West Indies. He is next to only Rabada, who was a fabulous average of 14.3. Before yesterday's spell, Hazelwood's average was 15.7, and I am sure it would have further improved after yesterday's brilliant spell. So he was superb. He was single-handedly responsible with his bowling in the second innings to destroy the West Indies batting and to make this contest a completely one-sided one. From 86 for 8, the tail-enders played some enjoyable and entertaining cricket, especially Shamar Joseph, to entertain the crowd. He hit 44 of 22 balls to show his talent as a batter, in addition to his fabulous bowling talent that he has already exhibited. And he also gave an indication that he could be a really handy bowling all-rounder for West Indies in all forms of cricket, because he hit some big sixes and fours to hit 44 of 22 balls with a 200 strike rate. And before he was dismissed by Nathan Lyon, who came back to do a polishing job, he took Shamar Joseph, and the very next ball he dismissed Seals to wrap up the West Indian innings at 141 and ensure Australia won by 159 runs. So it was a fabulous win by Australia, and West Indies lost it. But the fact is that they lost it in such a embarrassing manner in 3 days' time, or comprehensive manner. That is not because of how they actually played overall. It was mainly because of their pathetic catching and fielding and their bad and application-less batting. But their bowling actually deserves some better result on the scorecard, at least a better, tighter finish to give respect to their bowling, which was so brilliant. The bowling spearheaded by Shamar Joseph, Algeri Joseph, Greaves and Seals were brilliant and fabulous. They kept the intensity throughout. They made the life of Australian batters miserable throughout the 2 innings they bowled, and they were super. They were relentless. They were never wavering with their line, length or movement. They were fabulous. They did all they could to keep West Indies in the attack, in the hunt, but then poor fielding, poor batting, and of course some questionable DRS decision in the second day also went against West Indies. But West Indies would be happy that they have some positive to take it to the next test and also to the future series. That is, their bowling looks much more menacing and also looks much more hostile and potent. It's their batting and fielding they have to work upon. For Australia, they had a perfect start to their new WTC cycle. They have gathered the full point. They have got a convincing win. But they also would be in the heart of it know that it was not an easy match. Their match was really tricky for some part of the game. And they would also know that they have some big question marks over their frontline batting. And that is a big worry for them, not only in the next test, but also in the future series when the crunch time comes against the big teams. Their opening slots are in real trouble, because while they are trying to not look at Khwaja's position, who himself is under a vulnerable position because of his poor form and his age. He is actually on the verge of retiring, but they may try to stick to him because they have serious problem on the other side, because they have not been able to find a replacement for Warner. And they tried Constance. This time Constance was looking miserable against the quality pace bowling on a difficult pitch. So he was looking all at sea, and I don't think he can be considered right now as a prospect to fill up Warner's shoes. So they may try to look for someone else, but that looks also challenging because their coffers are not full. They are empty almost in terms of real talent available for opening slot. Now once they find a replacement for Warner or the other side, then they have to think about even Khwaja, because Khwaja is not getting any younger. He may not be there even for the Ashes or definitely post Ashes. So they have to find 2 openers, and they are not even yet to find one. And their number 3 slot is in big trouble, because they in the WTC final decided to push Labuschagne for the opening slot, and they tried to invest on Cameron Green for the future long-term number 3. Cameron Green had a miserable time in the WTC final, and it was same thing was repeated in this test also. So that experiment has failed, but then Cameron Green is a too talented a player, and he's going to be a real asset for Australia, and Australia has tremendous confidence in him. So maybe they are ready to have that patience with him, and maybe hopefully he will bring results. But then even the number 4 was a problem for them this time. That was Josh Inglis. He had a miserable time this time. He flopped in both the innings, but Australia would not be losing too much sleep over him because he was standing in for Steve Smith, and Steve Smith was only nursing a broken injury, injured finger. So he would be expected to be fit for the next test, and once he comes, number 4 position will be taken care of. Once Steve Smith there at number 4, the batting lineup would look much different and much calm and much stable and much formidable. And then with batters like Travis Head and Carey and Webster to follow, it would look a formidable batting lineup. So all Australia would need is that if Labuschagne can come back first, rejuvenated and back to his former glory and peak form, then they would put him in the number 3, and then they would give or allow Cameron Green to take a slot below him, which is of his liking, maybe number 5 or number 6, because there he can punish the opponents with his stroke play when the opponent bowlers would be tired and the ball would be softer. And then you look at the batting lineup with Labuschagne in form, Steve Smith, the legend there, and then followed by Head, Carey, Green and Webster, then it would be quite a huge and formidable batting lineup. At that time, then only Australia would have to concentrate on their opener slot. But then till the time Labuschagne is back, and till the time Cameron Green fulfills his potential and his promise and comes back with a good return on investment, Australia would have some worries for the next test and also for the future series in terms of their frontline batting. So yes, plenty to chew for both the teams, but Australia would be much happier with the points and the result they wanted. So hopefully West Indies can carry the positive in terms of bowling and improve in their batting and fielding to give a much better fight in the next test and make it a tighter contest. So let's wait for the second test. Thank you.